Baseball has always celebrated its champions, the icons whose names echo through generations: Ruth, Mantle, DiMaggio. But hidden among the legends is a figure both brilliant and volatile, a man whose genius for the game was rivaled only by his self-destruction. His name was Billy Martin. To Yankees fans, he wasn't just another manager, he was fire itself. He could take a broken team and within a season turn them into contenders. Statistics prove it. His clubs consistently won more games than expected, defying every prediction. Yet just as quickly as he lifted a team, he would be fired, again and again, only to be rehired, adored, and eventually dismissed once more. 5 times with the Yankees. 5 times the same story. What kind of man inspires such loyalty, yet sparks so much chaos? Was Billy Martin truly one of baseball's greatest managers, or simply a tragic hero doomed by his own flaws? In this story, we'll step beyond the dugout fights and barroom brawls to uncover the heart of a man who could win the game but never win over himself. This is the untold story of Billy Martin, the genius, the firebrand, the tragic legend of America's pastime. He was born into a world that offered little comfort and even less security. Oakland in the 1930s was a place of grit, a working-class community where survival demanded toughness, and toughness was something young Billy Martin learned from the start. His father was absent, his mother worked long hours in rough environments, and the boy grew up on the streets, where fists spoke louder than words. Every alley became his training ground, every pickup game of baseball a chance not only to play, but to fight for respect. Small in stature, often underestimated, Billy quickly understood that he would never win by sheer size or strength. He had to outthink, outwork, and outfight those around him. The relentless edge of his personality, combative, hungry, and unyielding, was born in these early years. Baseball was more than just a pastime. It was a sanctuary, a way to channel the fire burning inside him. Each swing of the bat, each slide into base, carried the defiance of a boy determined to prove he belonged, even when the world told him otherwise. This scrappy resilience forged his character and foreshadowed the man who would one day electrify and polarize the game's biggest stage. The turning point in Billy Martin's life came not from the streets, but from the diamond of Yankee Stadium, where destiny paired him with a mentor who saw in him more than just another utility player. Casey Stengel, the legendary Yankees manager, took a liking to the young infielder. Stengel saw a mind sharp as a razor and a heart unafraid of pressure. Billy wasn't the power hitter or the headline star. He played alongside Mantle, Berra, and Ford, names destined for the Hall of Fame. But what set Martin apart was his instinct. He was the man who moved runners over in critical innings, who made the clutch defensive play when everything was on the line. To Stengel, Billy was a manager in training, absorbing strategy and nuance from the dugout like a sponge. It was during these years that Martin learned the art of manipulation, the subtle use of strategy to outmaneuver opponents. He studied tendencies, memorized weaknesses, and developed a sixth sense for the flow of the game. More importantly, he tasted the adrenaline of October baseball, where pressure could crush men. For Billy, the pressure became oxygen. When he delivered in clutch moments, like his game-saving catches in the 1952 World Series, he cemented his reputation as a player who thrived under fire. These experiences were not just memories. They were building blocks of a philosophy that would define his managerial style. From Stengel, he learned both brilliance and theater, and he never forgot that baseball was as much about psychology as it was about skill. When his playing days faded, Martin's transition into management revealed his destiny. With the Minnesota Twins, a mediocre club suddenly turned into a division winner under his leadership. His style was unlike anything baseball had seen in decades. Known as Billy Ball, his approach was built on aggression. hit and runs, daring steals, double steals, and unrelenting pressure on opposing defenses. He demanded hustle, expected intensity, and punished complacency. To fans, it was exhilarating. To his players, it was often terrifying. They knew failure would be met with the manager's volcanic temper, yet many also admitted they played harder under him than anyone else. At Detroit, he repeated the magic, lifting a middling team to contention and discovering hidden talent, including Ron LeFleur, a man he pulled out of prison and into the major leagues. In Texas, he took over a team buried in last place and, within a year, turned them into winners, earning Manager of the Year honors. At Oakland, he pushed a broken franchise back to respectability, winning with a brutal five-man rotation that pushed pitchers beyond their limits. Everywhere he went, Billy produced results. He could transform culture overnight, instill belief where there had been despair, and spark energy in cities desperate for hope. Yet the pattern was inescapable. As soon as success arrived, turmoil followed. For every victory came a clash, with owners, with umpires, with his own players. Billy could win games, but he could not win peace. The most famous stage for Billy Martin's drama was the Bronx. The Yankees of the 1970s were a team of legends and egos, none bigger than George Steinbrenner, the iron-willed owner, and Reggie Jackson, the superstar slugger. Into this volatile mix walked Billy Martin, beloved by the fans but combustible in every direction. His first stint delivered instant results, a pennant in year one, a World Series title in year two. Yet even victory couldn't shield him from conflict. Martin clashed with Jackson over discipline and style of play. He clashed with Steinbrenner over authority. The public feud became tabloid gold, with Martin famously declaring, "One's a born liar, the other's convicted." It was raw, brutal, and pure New York theater. 5 times the Yankees hired him. 5 times they fired him. Each return was greeted like a hero's homecoming, crowds roaring at the announcement, ticket sales soaring. Martin was more than a manager, he was a spectacle. He symbolized both hope and chaos, the embodiment of a city that thrived on drama. His presence turned games into battles and every postgame into headlines. Yet behind the curtain, the same demons haunted him, drinking, fighting, mistrust. The Yankees' story with Martin became a cycle of passion and destruction, a love affair too powerful to last, but too addictive to end. What made Billy Martin a tragic figure was not only his brilliance, but his inability to master himself. Alcohol followed him everywhere, from team flights to Manhattan bars. He fought players, umpires, even strangers, famously brawling with a marshmallow salesman in Minnesota. In Oakland, his obsession with complete games destroyed the arms of an entire pitching staff, young talents whose careers were shortened under the strain. His paranoia and temper turned allies into enemies, and his reckless lifestyle made him a liability to the very franchises he saved. The tragedy was not just in the chaos, but in the waste. Here was a man capable of genius strategy, a manager who saw the game in layers others missed, undone by the same impulses that made him fearless. In a sport defined by patience and discipline, Martin burned too hot, too fast. He could outthink anyone on the field, yet he could not outthink his own demons. Each firing became inevitable, not because he failed as a leader, but because he failed as a man. His story forces us to confront a painful truth. Talent without control can win battles, but it rarely wins wars. Despite the wreckage, Billy Martin's brilliance cannot be denied. His Billy Ball philosophy left an imprint on baseball strategy, inspiring teams to embrace aggression and unpredictability. He was among the few managers willing to call every pitch, overriding his catchers, because he believed he saw the game more clearly than anyone else. Players like Rickey Henderson later credited him as the greatest manager they ever had, praising his uncanny ability to motivate, teach, and connect. Even many Hispanic players adored him, naming their sons after him, proof of the bond he could forge when he chose to nurture rather than destroy. Comparisons illuminate his uniqueness. Earl Weaver was known for analytics, Tommy Lasorda for inspiration, but Billy Martin combined both fire and calculation. He could charm a room, light up a bar with laughter, and then turn on a dime into a fighter no one wanted to face. His genius was tactical, but his magnetism was emotional. Fans adored him not because he was perfect, but because he was real, raw, unfiltered, unafraid. He represented the drama of baseball in its purest form, unpredictable, exhilarating, unforgettable. His legacy remains one of contradictions. In New York, his number one is retired, an honor reserved for icons, even though his playing career was modest. That single gesture reveals his significance, not as a hitter or fielder, but as a force of personality who defined an era. His clashes with Steinbrenner helped shape the mythology of the Yankees, making their battles as memorable as their championships. His triumphs in Oakland, Detroit, Texas, and Minnesota proved his methods worked anywhere, but his implosions reminded everyone of the fragility of unchecked fire. Billy Martin's funeral drew presidents, legends, and thousands of fans, a testament to the strange power he held. He was loved and feared, admired and pitied. In many ways, he embodied America's complex relationship with its heroes. We celebrate their brilliance, forgive their flaws, but never forget the wreckage left behind. His story is not just baseball's story. It is a human story of ambition, genius, and self-destruction. He was a man who could outwit the game itself, but who never mastered the battle within. And for that, Billy Martin stands not just as a manager or a ball player, but as one of the most tragic and unforgettable figures ever to step onto the diamond. Billy Martin's life reminds us that greatness is rarely simple. He was a man who lived every inning at full throttle, who refused to accept mediocrity, and who carried teams on his back with nothing but sheer will. Yet he was also a man undone by his own impulses, a fighter who could not put down his fists even when victory was already his. In the dugout, he was a genius. Outside it, he was a storm. That paradox is what makes his story unforgettable. New York still remembers the fire, the drama, the impossible comebacks. Fans remember the thrill of Billy Ball, the electric style that made every game feel alive. His number one hangs forever in Yankee Stadium, not for the statistics he produced as a player, but for the indelible mark he left on the soul of the franchise. Billy Martin's story is not just about baseball. It is about the cost of brilliance without restraint, the glory of a man who refused to be ordinary, and the tragedy of one who could never escape himself. In the end, he was both hero and cautionary tale. And perhaps that is why his name still echoes like a battle cry across the history of America's pastime.